I was born January 16th, 1938. It was a Sunday morning early with great big snowflakes coming down. People came from church just to see me. I was born in Star Valley, Wyoming, but that was just my grandma Nebeker's place. I was born in the same home, same room as my mother had been 23 years earlier.
Oh, wow.
And then I grew up in Annis, Idaho. We had two big orchards and raspberry patch and strawberry patch. And I loved fruit. I lived in the orchard and the berry patches. We had an orchard, well actually two of them, every kind of apple and pear and plum that you could name. And I've always loved fruit. I lived in the orchard and I lived in the berry patches, raspberry and strawberries. When I was just real little, Mom said I was just walking good. I was up in the orchard and the lady said, that came to buy some windfall apples, said, "Nora, your baby's eating an apple." And she says, "Nothing new. She's been eating them ever since I can remember." And that's the way I've always been. I love my fruits. Lloyd, Ephraim Scott, and Nora Lorena Nebeker. They met at a dance hall, saw each other, and just like two magnets coming together. I have three siblings. First was the twins, Dee and Darla. Dee's name was Dee Lloyd, after his dad, and Darla May, after a little girl that was a movie star. And then I came 3 years later, and my aunt was helping with the delivery, and she said, "If it's a girl, you'll name her after me, because the doctor said, if it's a boy, ye shall name him Joseph after me." And my mother said, "Oh, please let it be a girl." So here I come, Blanche, after my Aunt Blanche, who was her sister. Dragging a doll by its foot, which infuriated my big sister, and praying for my twin that was supposed to come. I thought that everybody came, male and female, because of Mom and Dad was male and female, Dee and Darla was male and female, and then there was just me. 17 and a half years later of prayers going up constantly for my baby brother twin, I finally got him. And that, by the way, was the first happiest day of my life, to finally get my baby brother. Yeah, I think so, other than everything was the twins. That didn't sit right with me at all, because no matter how I prayed, I couldn't get a twin here. But not when I was little. But after Darla's oldest child, Judy, came along, she called me Aunt Bobby. And so I was known as Bobby for quite a few years there. I think we had a dog named Old Rover. And Old Rover would run up this tree. Now, part of the tree went this way and the other part arched over. And if you went out to the privy or anybody drove over the bridge, Old Rover would run, jump up on that tree that arched over, and stand up there and bark until he decided to go and greet whoever came in the car. Or if you came out of the old privy, then he walked you back to the house. And it was always fun to see and hear Old Rover, do the greetings. It's an outdoor toilet made of wood with two holes. And so actually 2 people could use the toilet at the same time, which I did one day with my dear Uncle Fred. And he was so embarrassed, but I was 3 years old and he just loved me. And I sat there all prim and proper and I says, "Uncle Fred, you know what I can do?" And he says, "No, what can you do?" "I can poop pink and green and black and red and purple." And I just was in my 7th heaven talking to my Uncle Fred. It was built in 1910 by my grandpa, Josiah Scott, and his cousins that worked on the Salt Lake Temple as stonemasons. And so they chiseled the stone to not have it flat, but to have it with more character to it. And it was a gorgeous home. It even appeared in Better Homes and Gardens magazine. It was almost a black color, more of a gray, I guess, and white. The corners were white, and the rest of it was the dark color. It is still standing, and it could be beautiful today, but it's been abandoned for about 45 years, and so it needs a lot of TLC to get the beauty back. Not my grandpa. My grandpa died shortly after the home was built. He didn't even get a porch put on it. Horses ran away with the buggy in Rigby, and he ended up dying from the injuries. But I did live in one part of the house, and Grandma Scott lived in the living room, the parlor, and her bedroom. Orson lived with her. What had been the living room, she turned into her kitchen. And there was a door that was always locked with a cupboard in front of it between the 2 parts of the house. We had just the kitchen and 2 upstairs bedrooms. The first time I got married in 1956, April 15th, in the temple, Idaho Falls Temple, to Kenneth Ray 5. I actually met him at a little service station store in Manan, and my girlfriend Carol Poole and I were together, and in an awkward way he asked each of us out, and we didn't answer him. And so we got talking about it, and she says, "And I feel sorry that we turned him down." And I says, "Well, he didn't really ask." I says, "But I feel kind of bad about that too." I says, "Next time he asks, let's go out with him." And then she moved away, so I went ahead and started going with him, and I found things good about him that I liked, and thought I was in love, and so I ended up getting engaged the first day of school, my senior year, and was engaged all my senior year. So you can tell that wasn't a whole lot of fun, my graduation year. Later divorced right after Rodney was born, so that was 1962 I left. 63 the divorce became final. Scott came first, and when I saw his name, it was like it was 3 small puffy clouds. And the first name, S-C-O-T, in honor of my maiden name. The next was Ken, K-E-N-N, in honor of his daddy. And then 5. And as you will notice, all of those words are 4-letter words. He was born February 15th. He was my late Valentine because we lived out on the rural delivery and everything came late. Then Noreen was next. Noreen came when Scott was only 18 months old. And she was named a special name after both of her grandmothers. Well, first I'll tell you what I was going to name Noreen. I was going to name her Juanita Noreen. And she says, well, if you're naming her after me, you won't name her Juanita. And I says, well, what do you want her name then? She says, Jessie. Well, I didn't want Jessie, but if I'd have just put it Noreen Jessie Fife, there'd be no problem. But to this day, Noreen is still Jessie Noreen. Exactly 1 year and 1 day later, 1959, Latrice came. She wouldn't come on Noreen's birthday. The doctor started labor and everything, and she refused to come. She wanted her own birthday even then. And then next came, I had a little vacation of 3 years. The next was Rodney Raymond Scuderi, or Fife. And he was born March 24th. So the boys were born in Idaho Falls at the hospital, and the girls were born in Phil Maternity Home in Rigby. That's right. With Scott, I had hung clothes out on the line. I had washed all day long, and I had to reach up to hang them up on the line. And it was an old wives' tale, but they said that if you reached up a lot, the cord could wrap around the neck of the baby and kill it. And so I was scared out of my gourd, and I laid there and prayed that he'd be all right. And I actually heard, "I'm okay, Mom, it's all right." And then there was no more worry about him. And I couldn't tell you how many times in Scott's life I've heard those same words come from him. With Noreen, when she was just going to be christened, receive her name, she woke up chirping like a bird, and that's how she got nicknamed the bird, Noreen Bird. And she's carried that nickname forever. The other kids I had nicknames for, but they all passed away and wasn't used anymore. But with Noreen, it was always my Noreen Bird. She was always happy and woke up. She was a good morning person, woke up happy. And with Trish, she would scoot right up me when she was just a baby. And just like a kitten or a puppy, she would just keep scooting till she was just right up here under my chin. And she was a happy baby, except she bit. And she bit Noreen, and I was trying to take a family picture of my kids. And Noreen's going, "Wow!" And Trisha's just, "Why?" You know, and I thought, oh, this is a great family picture. Then with Rodney was very skinny when he was born. He was 21 inches long. That's why he stretched me so bad. But he couldn't tolerate milk at all. He ended up having to have that awful mole soy in order to have formula and live. Yes, I met James one night at a dance. Actually, he was up at Pocatello for a wedding with a roommate of his. He was in the Air Force at Hill Air Force Base. And he met this lady that happened to be one of my friends that I went to the dances with. And they got talking about ballroom dancing, and he says, well, where do you go? I love to ballroom dance. And she says, oh, I'll take you. And so they made arrangements that the next Friday night she would pick him up and take him ballroom dancing. I had been suffering with a migraine headache that was severe for 3 days and nights. But that night I had to go to that dance. And the kids squawked and carried on, and they usually didn't. And I says, I have been suffering and I've got to go to this dance, and I'm going. And I went. Well, James goes to get in the car, and the girl that he thinks he has a date with is the driver. Fanny was a widowed lady, young widowed lady. And there was this wild gay divorcee sitting in the back. And of course he had to join me in the back seat. So when we got in the place, he thought he would be the gentleman and pay for each of us to go into the dance. And we were all independent people, and we all paid our own way. So he turned to Fanny and he says, what was her name again? Meaning me. And of course she said Blanche, and so when you hear your name you turn and look to see who wants you. And so I turned and looked, and she left with a dance partner. And so James turned to me and he says, well, would you care to finish this dance, because it was almost over? And I said, sure, why not? We went out on the dance floor, and he never let me off the dance floor. We danced together all night long. I had a vision one night. Now, I was a very independent lady. I thought I could do everything and anything, and I don't need help from anybody, thank you very much. And so that night, for some reason, I got down on my knees and prayed for someone to help me raise the kids right, and to love me and love the kids. And I just got into bed, and in the corner of the room it got real bright, and I saw me up here at my dad and mom's place milking the cows. Because in this vision, and seeing me milking the cows, I saw a man standing in the corral in a uniform, and it was a tan uniform. So I thought, well, he's probably in Vietnam, that's why I haven't met him. I hadn't met any Jims. In the vision, the voice said, this is Jim, he'll be good to you and the children. And then it faded away and the room was dark again. And I thought, I don't want somebody just to be good to us. I want somebody to love us. So this one day, my best friend Cher said, Blanche, come here quick. And I said, yeah, just a moment. We were both secretaries and I was filing some stuff. No, Blanche, come now, quick. So I ran around the corner and she says, look, it was Jim running from his car to the office in his tan uniform. She says, okay, now do you get it? And I says, I think I got it. Well, I got exactly what I wanted because I couldn't have been more loved. The kids couldn't have been more loved. You know, we both had to work on our wedding day of all things. Now, our bosses were wonderful. They let us go early. And James turned to me and he says, I'll call it off if you will. And I says, you got it. And Big Sure says, absolutely not. I've gone through enough with you two. You're getting married now. So the bishop is going through the ceremony. And Trish decides she needs a drink of water. So clunk, 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 clunk. She gets a drink of water, comes back and sits down by Grandma. Rodney says, "I'm bored, I'm going to go out and play." Grandma grabs him by the neck. "No, you're not, sit down." And the bishop says, "I now pronounce you man and wife." We forgot half of the ceremony. So that was quite a different wedding. And then we got in the car and traveled clear to out of state to Wyoming to the friend that got James and me together's wedding reception to celebrate with them. We didn't know they'd been married for 3 days. It was nothing new for them, and we'd just gotten married. 46 years. We were trying for at least 50. That's what we had in mind, but did good to get to 46 with all of his health problems and everything. Oh yes, we had one. I was trying to at least have 2 with James, but my veins got so bad I could not go through another pregnancy, so I had a hysterectomy and we just had the one. Christopher. He chose his name to be Christopher Thomas after his dad, because James was James Thomas Scuderi. Christopher was a total daddy's baby, period. I mean, he would go to his dad, I think, more often than he went to me. And next in line was Noreen. Now, Rodney was the first one to hold the baby. I didn't intend on being a secretary when I first started out working. I was going to be a nurse like my mother. And then the veins got real bad, had to have an operation, so that put that out. And as a secretary, I could sit and I could stand and I could walk, and I could do that job real well. And then too, I love people, I love meeting them, so that was a good fit for me. Well, of course, I'd say my kids, and now my grandkids, and now my great-grandkids. Just live your life and be happy. Don't worry about what others might think, what they might say, what they might do. I did too much of that. And James straightened me out quite a bit, but I still have just a little bit of a problem with that. As a friend to everybody. And I count my kids as my best friends, my neighbors, my husband, just all the people that walk through this world with me in my life. Friendships are worth treasures. Well, it was early in my life, but I've been reminded of it many times with the family. I was just 3 years old. We were living in Nevada, and this rooster got after this little baby chick and had it in its mouth and was running with it. And I grabbed a stick that I could hardly drag, and I "Drop that, you damn bitch, drop that." And my mother and Aunt Blanche were standing at the window. Nobody coming out to help this poor baby chick but me. And I have too big of a stick to do any good. And I have been reminded of that over and over again. And I still have Aunt Blanche that still reminds me of that.
How old were you?
3. I love everybody, all of my clan.